In the echoes of our strides, where the pavement meets ambition, we chant a chorus of resilience. Win with us. Where dreams turn to plans, where unity fuels our climb. In the vast fields of possibility, it's never them who can extinguish the fire that burns within us. Tethered not by the challenges we face, but by the victories we claim. Stand tall, march proud, win with us. Because it's in our collective spirit that we find our greatest strength.
All of a sudden they want to win with a stick, but ain't spin with a stick.
In the echoes of our strides, where the pavement meets ambition, we chant a chorus of resilience. Win with us. Where dreams turn to plans, where unity fuels our climb. In the vast fields of possibility, it's never them who can extinguish the fire that burns within us. Tethered not by the challenges we face, but by the victories we claim. Stand tall, march proud, win with us. Because it's in our collective spirit that we find our greatest strength.
All of a sudden they want to win with a stick, but ain't spin with a stick.
Dear Pierce, I'm recording this video for you because I'm about to make a big announcement. And it's going to be tough for us. You know, I'm not going to be able to tuck you in every night or do our nighttime prayers together. But these are sacrifices so many hardworking families have to make every single day. Fighting for what you believe in is hard enough, but it's worth doing when you found something that makes your heart beat faster. And for me, it's you. Yeah, I've started a nonprofit, owned a small business in Detroit, even beat cancer. Served on President Obama's cancer panel, earned Ivy League degrees, and written best-selling books. But for me, adopting you is the greatest thing I've done in my life. You see, the world you're growing up in doesn't feel like it's getting any better. It's more divisive and more dangerous. When you told me that you were afraid to go to school because of shootings, it's not freedom. Our economy works for the richest, while the most vulnerable have to work even harder than ever to keep up. That's not freedom. At the core of so much of this are too many politicians in office that don't really care about people. You see, what I learned on my grandfather's farm growing up is that when you plant something in good soil, you get something much better in return. That's why I'm raising you in Michigan. A community where people are kind, work hard, and believe the future is worth fighting for. Because every child in every neighborhood, in every town across Michigan deserves the freedom to flourish. I believe our government should work for the people, be a force for good, and protect our freedoms. And that won't happen if we keep electing the same type of people to office. That's why I'm running for the United States Senate, to represent Michigan. I love you, son, and I hope to make you proud.
In the echoes of our strides, where the pavement meets ambition, we chant a chorus of resilience. Win with us. Where dreams turn to plans, where unity fuels our climb. In the vast fields of possibility, it's never them who can extinguish the fire that burns within us. Tethered not by the challenges we face, but by the victories we claim. Stand tall, march proud, win with us. Because it's in our collective spirit that that we find our greatest strength.
All of a sudden they wanna win with a stick, but ain't spin with a stick.
In the echoes of our strides, where the pavement meets ambition, we chant a chorus of resilience. Win with us. Where dreams turn to plans, where unity fuels our climb. In the vast fields of possibility, it's never them who can extinguish the fire that burns within us. Tethered not by the challenges we face, but by the victories we claim. Stand tall, march proud, win with us. Because it's in our collective spirit that we find our greatest strength.
All of a sudden they wanna win with a stick, but ain't spin with a stick.
In the echoes of our strides, where the pavement meets ambition, we chant a chorus of resilience. Win with us. Where dreams turn to plans, where unity fuels our climb. In the vast fields of possibility, it's never them who can extinguish the fire that burns within us. Tethered not by the challenges we face, but by the victories we claim. Stand tall, march proud, win with us. Because it's in our collective spirit that we find our greatest strength.
All of a sudden they wanna win with a stick, but ain't spin with a stick.
In the echoes of our strides, where the pavement meets ambition, we chant a chorus of resilience. Win with us. Where dreams turn to plans, where unity fuels our climb. In the vast fields of possibility, it's never them who can extinguish the fire that burns within us. Tethered not by the challenges we face, but by the victories we claim. Stand tall, march proud, win with us. Because it's in our collective spirit that we find our greatest strength.
All of a sudden they wanna win with a stick, but ain't spin with a stick.
In the echoes of our strides, where the pavement meets ambition, we chant a chorus of resilience. Win with us. Where dreams turn to plans, where unity fuels our climb.
Dear Pierce, I'm recording this video for you because I'm about to make a big announcement. And it's going to be tough for us. You know, I'm not going to be able to tuck you in every night or do our nighttime prayers together. But these are sacrifices so many hardworking families have to make every single day. Fighting for what you believe in is hard enough, but it's worth doing when you found something that makes your heart beat faster. And for me, it's you. Yeah, I've started a nonprofit, owned a small business in Detroit, even beat cancer. Served on President Obama's cancer panel, earned Ivy League degrees, and written best-selling books. But for me, adopting you is the greatest thing I've done in my life. You see, the world you're growing up in doesn't feel like it's getting any better. It's more divisive and more dangerous. When you told me that you were afraid to go to school because of shootings, it's not freedom. Our economy works for the richest, while the most vulnerable have to work even harder than ever to keep up. That's not freedom. At the core of so much of this are too many politicians in office that don't really care about people. You see, what I learned on my grandfather's farm growing up is that when you plant something in good soil, you get something much better in return. That's why I'm raising you in Michigan, a community where people are kind, work hard, and believe the future is worth fighting for. Because every child in every neighborhood, in every town across Michigan deserves the freedom to flourish. I believe our government should work for the people, be a force for good, and protect our freedoms. And that won't happen if we keep electing the same type of people to office. That's why I'm running for the United States Senate, to represent Michigan. I love you, son, and I hope to make you proud.
What was the mathematical?
I'll put my purse down. You want me to put my purse? I think I'm happy with my one thing too. No, you're good. Go over there.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Unfortunately, you good? Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming. And let me say this. First of all, unfortunately, we're gathered here in this moment because fundamentally my opponent in this race, Alyssa Slotkin, decided to cancel and stop a debate that was supposed to happen in about 3 hours today. And since we don't have that, this is an opportunity for us to have a discussion and talk about values that are related to the Michigan voter, as well as how important this U.S. Senate race is. You know, I'm Hill Harper, Democratic candidate for United States Senate. I appreciate you guys being here. Woo! And I'll tell you this, I am not a career politician, but I am a cancer survivor. I'm a 32-year union member who was elected to the national board of my union. I'm a small business owner in downtown Detroit for the last 7 years. I'm a graduate of both Marine Corps Officer Candidate School, Harper Law School, as well as John F. Kennedy School of Government. I hold 10 honorary doctoral degrees, and I'm a proud father of a young 8-year-old named Pierce Hill Harper, who's my main man. People say I got a lot of energy. Pierce has even more energy, and I'm running for the United States Senate because so many people are hurting. There's so many people out here across Michigan. I've been to all 83 counties, folks that don't feel represented by their federal delegation. And the fact that Alyssa Slotkin pulled out of this debate is yet another example of the lack of representation that folks feel. Folks want to be informed voters, but they can't be informed voters if people pull out of debates, if folks decide not to actually stand on their record. And I don't know why she pulled out of this debate. Marvin Beatty does. She may have pulled out because she didn't want me to talk about the fact that she didn't co-sponsor the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Maybe she pulled out of the debate because she didn't want me to talk about that she didn't co-sponsor the Cannabis and Expungement Act. Maybe she pulled out of the debate because she didn't want me to talk about in 2020 she voted against student loan debt relief. Maybe she pulled out of the debate because she didn't want me to talk about the $2,800 max out check she took from Harlan Crow that she refused to give back. Maybe she didn't want to participate in the debate because she didn't want me to talk about the fact that she opposed the Department of Defense contracting with companies that have performed unfair labor practices. Maybe she pulled out of the debate because she didn't want me to talk about the fact that she didn't co-sponsor Medicare for All in the 117th and 118th Congress. Or the fact that she, well, I'll let you guys ask questions about this other one. Here's the deal. When we talk about Michiganders and what they want, this U.S. Senate seat is perhaps the most important seat that they voted on in the last 25 years. It's certainly the first competitive Democratic primary for an open U.S. Senate seat in Michigan in almost 2.5 decades. That means it's incumbent upon us as candidates to go everywhere across the state and inform voters. So I am calling today for Alyssa Slotkin to debate me at least 4 times across the state. Different geographical locations where voters can actually hear from us. In fact, she's here right now. We should debate right now. I think she's inside. I don't know exactly where she is. I saw her earlier. So it should be insulting to you as journalists for someone to pull out of a debate like that. But who it's most insulting to is the Michigan voter, because the Democratic Party establishment has tried to anoint a candidate without informing the voter about her stances. Because it's very clear that Alyssa Slotkin is not in line with the Michigan Democratic voters' values. Consistent votes, consistent stances that do not fit. 75% of Michigan Democrats are in favor of ceasefire. I called for ceasefire in November. That deserves a little. We really have to ask the question, and this is what I hear very consistently across the state. Michigan voters do not want, in November, a choice for the next U.S. Senator, somebody from the CIA and somebody from the FBI. Is that the choice we're actually going to give them? No. If you listen to the establishment of both parties, it seems that they want that to be the choice. And certainly it seems that both the Slotkin camp and the Rogers camp are colluding to pull out of a debate. At the end of the day, I don't blame them. I have to point my finger to the Detroit Regional Chamber. And this is not a popular thing to say, but they never should have pulled down the debate. Because I promise you, there would have been 2 empty chairs, or I don't know if they're going to have a stand up or not, or podiums. Those individuals probably would have shown up because they wouldn't want us talking for an hour and a half, the fact that they're not there. So it's really the fact that was there some measure of collusion between the Slotkin camp and the Detroit Regional Chamber of PAC? I hope that's not the case, because I'm the only Detroit resident that's actually in the race. And I'm proud. And I'm proud of so many folks that have supported me, starting the first person out of the gate was our county executive, Warren Evans, to have his support and endorsement. And then to have the endorsement of former Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, who served 2 terms. 2 terms with Alyssa, and says, you know what, I worked with this person, but I'm with Hill. That says a lot. Then to have the endorsement of the Southeast Regional Chamber of Commerce, to have the endorsement of somebody like Marvin Beatty, who's wearing a Gucci jacket. I mean, it's incredible. To have the endorsement of Stephanie Young, Representative Stephanie Young, Representative Tyrone Carter, Jimmy Wilson Jr. We can go down and down and down the line. So many folks have showed up. But the one that's most recent that I'm most proud of, to be quite honest, is the Michigan Canadian Council of Bishops, where Bishop J. Drew Shear, the head of the Kojic Church, the largest Pentecostal church in the country, and certainly in Michigan, to stand up and call bishops from all across the state to assemble, to say, I am behind Hill Harper, sends a message to all of us. And we have the faith community behind us because they want real leadership. In a time it's difficult to find, and I'll finish with this and open up for questions. And I've been an actor most of my life, and I can tell when someone's reading from a script. And the only actor in this race is Alyssa Slocum, because she's reading from a script. Our governor has been saying for a long time, don't listen to what people say, look at what they do. And if you look at her stances, and if you look at her votes, and what she's chosen to co-sponsor or not, it's very clear that right now, in this primary, she's reading from a script. And to release, to simultaneously say, I won't participate in a debate, but the day before to release a 30-second campaign video. Look at this. Yeah, I'm ready. So. Yes. Okay. Okay. So, to release a video that is so out of touch, shouting your CIA credentials, and simultaneously pull out of a debate at a time when our country's militarism is actually under a microscope for funding foreign violence, we have to say that she is clearly an actor who's out of touch. And with that, I'll open it up to questions. You can ask me questions or Congresswoman Lawrence questions as well.
We can't be doing questions up here, sir. We got to move down up the balcony. We appreciate it.
Okay, so we can do questions down off the balcony.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Let's try it. Good job.
And Miss Lee, at the beginning there,
Okay, I need y'all to come down. I have.
you already have. Okay.
This is not an announcement. I already did.
Okay, good. What do you like about it?
I've got the credentials.
I keep telling you because I keep forgetting again.
You got me in a little trouble, but
I didn't know that there was a good question.
it's over. Or it's down there.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, they're talking, Brenda.
Go ahead. Put your, I gotta get to my 2:10 and it's 2:17.
Well,
All right, looks like you can help out. Okay,
And told me that you have reached out to your campaign to set up a new debate time. Can you verify?
yeah, in my understanding from my side, I haven't seen it, but it was very performative. I think it was very general. The idea was, hey, we really would like to talk about the possibility of maybe having a debate, that kind of thing, rather than saying, hey, we want 4 debates, anywhere, anytime. I'm happy to do that. And it should be all across the state, so that different folks can hear. Because to pull it down here where there's the largest platform, where you have journalists from all across the state, and it was going to be televised, it's an opportunity for the whole state to see. Now that they've made that happen, we should debate at least 4 times across the state, because it's none of these debates are going to be televised again. And so, so a reach out like that, so they could stand here and say, isn't that odd to say? We've reached out about a debate, but there was a debate that was supposed to happen. The time it was supposed to happen hasn't even happened yet, and she's here.
When did they contact you?
I believe they reached out either this morning
This morning,
or yesterday.
within the last 24 hours.
Yes. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. So that's what I'm
So it
telling
wasn't
you.
after the cancellation last week.
No. So that's, I'm telling you about what I heard about it. So I can't tell you exactly what anything was sent or what was sent.
I'm curious, has like the Michigan Democratic Party or any Democratic organizations offered to host a debate? Have you heard
Yes,
any
look,
word?
there's been multiple candidate forums where she hasn't shown up. Okay, we're all invited. So, Washtenaw County Dems candidate forum, she didn't show up. Redford Township candidate forum, she didn't show up. The Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Political Action Committee, she didn't show up. So these are all, you know, and there's probably more than I'm just going off the top of my head. So she has not shown up to any of these multiple candidate invite forums, and with no explanation.
Michigan Bulletin Lansing. I know that's one of the areas that you will be covering.
Yes.
Tell us about what you see the vision is for mid-Michigan, across Michigan. What is your platform? What do you want to tell us?
Sure. So when we talk about this race, we keep hearing how divided we are, but I've been all over. And we're not as divided as we are disconnected. So, for instance, this farmer outside of Midland that I talked to, when I asked him, what do you want out of your U.S. Senate? What do you want me to fight for? He said almost verbatim the exact same thing. A single mom on the east side of Detroit at safe place to send their kids to school. They want affordable housing. They want a living wage. They want the ability to take a vacation every once in a while without going into lifelong debt. And they don't want a massive amount of student loan debt. And they want clean, healthy air and water. I mean, these are just the simple basics. And this is a person who said, listen, I'm going to vote for Trump, but I'm going to vote for you. And obviously, the single mom, she's voting for somebody else. The point is that we're all so much more connected. And so part of my whole message is about unifying Michigan. We have to bring it together. I mean, the fact that we are so segregated in so many ways in this state makes no sense when many of our values are very much aligned. I mean, look at the school system. The Detroit public schools, you go to one of these schools, 99% African American, right? Then you go out to a different suburb, 99% white, right? We have to. It's almost like de facto. And the reason why I say that is that obviously we know the 70-year anniversary of Brown v. Board of Education was just May 17th here this past year. And we literally have gone 70 years from legislating the end of segregation to de facto segregation. And I believe that most Michiganders want more unity, want us to come together. And I'm sorry that my candidacy almost represents some of that as well. Look how many black leaders have gotten behind me. But Dylan Wegula is the only state rep, I think, white state rep, that has actually met my campaign. What does that mean when I have so much African-American support? Does that mean that the African-American leaders are out of touch? Or is there something else going on as far as segregation? You know, I'm proud of this campaign because we're about bringing people together. We're about unity. And that's what I've been about my whole life, right? All the books I've written, all of my foundation is about actually giving voice to underrepresented communities and giving voice to everybody. And that's what we're doing. And that's why we're winning voters 2-1. We're the only candidacy, I believe, in this U.S. Senate race, Republican or Democrat, that has so much energy and momentum. The question is, are we going to be able to get in front of enough voters? And that's what they're trying to do by stealing oxygen, by taking this debate down on this big platform.
So what do you say to people who say, you're new here, you're a new kid on the block, and you maybe haven't paid your dues?
I moved here 8 years ago. I lived here longer than Alyssa Salka. Now, think about this. I moved here in early 2016. She didn't move here until after the presidential election in 2016. So anybody who says, you just look at the facts. I've lived here longer than she has. And so there's nothing wrong. Coleman Alexander Young was from Alabama. He wasn't even from Detroit. So I don't care where you're from. I care about who you are and what you're about. But anybody who tries to say, I'm new here.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sorry if you answered this already, but
I probably
you might have. But have you been in contact with the selection campaign about a potential future forum?
They did a performative outreach, to my understanding, that was so that when you ask this question, because they know you're coming here, that I would say, oh yeah, my understanding of my campaign is general reach out saying we want to be in touch about doing something or having a discussion. We want for the biggest state. She hasn't shown up for any of the candidate forums. Washtenaw County did, no shot. Redford Township, no shot. AKAs, political action group, no shot. And so the fact that you're going to send that we want to debate before a debate debate and the schedule that everybody knew about. This wasn't like the Detroit Regional Chamber Political Action Committee threw it up last week and said, "Can you make it?" We've been contact about this months, and everybody had it on their schedule. And so the pull-out now is just a reinforcement of the strength of the momentum of our campaign, because they want to steal oxygen. They don't want me to be on the same stage with her on a big platform. And sure, I'm sure they'll agree to some debate someplace that's not barely screened, certainly not covered by PBS. It happens. That's why we need multiple debates, because it's just going to be about the people in the room for the most part. More people across the state deserve to see their candidates and make an informed choice. Because I know my values are more in line with the Michigan Democratic voter than hers. She's not a real Democrat.
So in essence, we use likely disqualification from the race, changing the dynamics at all.
You know what? I don't know. I mean, the voters have to decide. I mean, I can guarantee you this: that talking to all of my friends in the Arab and Muslim community, they do not want to support a candidate that's taking almost $600,000 from AIPAC, and that's Alyssa Slime. I'm taking zero money from AIPAC, zero, and I won't take money. I'm not taking any corporate PAC money, and so I believe that I would be their candidate of choice. So let's talk about a number of votes that represent her. She was the only. Now I'm going off. I could pull it out of my pocket to really look at the exact numbers, but I'm going off memory right now. I believe she was the only Democrat out of 214 to oppose studying Lyme disease, as an example. We've had a Lyme disease explosion in this state, which is incredible. I did a documentary about Lyme disease. That's why I'm kind of familiar with the topic. And she was the only Democrat, to my knowledge, that opposed funding for college students with disabilities. There was a cutout. It was only $500,000 cutout to support this college students with disabilities program. She opposed, I guess, one of 3 Democrats. I'm talking about out of 214. So I'm not saying out of one of 3 Democrats, I believe, to oppose funding, and may have been the only one, again, memory, and you guys can check it. Funding for, it was a literacy grant, $1 million for a literacy grant, voted against it. She voted with Republicans opposing this big oil stock buyback program. And what I mean by that is there was legislation was put forth that, big oil was taking oil reserves, our oil reserves, as well as getting tax subsidies. But then they were using the money to do stock buybacks to inflate their own coffers. And so a piece of legislation came forward to say, if you're going to take oil reserves, you can't do stock buybacks. Basically, you can't use the people's money to do a stock buyback. She opposed that. She's in the pocket of big oil. She's in the pocket of big pharma. She's in the pocket of AIPAC. And she doesn't represent the Democratic vote. I believe the Democratic vote is out. Just look at how do you not co-sponsor the Cannabis and Expungement Act when your state has already voted for legalization of cannabis in 2018 and they're supposedly representing those people?
How have you been responding to the criticism when you filed that campaign finance report saying you had no bank account?
Yeah, that was a mistake by a staffer. And as soon as we noticed the mistake, we did a revision. In fact, I got a call from somebody, because I guess if you look at this, we hired the best guy in the country that knew how to do, filings. And they told me that our filing is the standard for future candidates, and it's detailed, because they want information about every single piece of money you've received above $500. And just the nature of my career, since I don't work for one person, I work for all these different things. There's so many. It's like 15 or 16 pages, and you guys can go through it. It's a public document. But the point is that I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that we filed something so complete that folks can look at and say there's a level of transparency that they actually haven't seen before.
He's supporting Joe Biden. What do you make of his handling of Israel, the war in Gaza?
I'm absolutely supporting President Biden and Kamala Harris. Gaza's tough, and it's horrible what's happened. And I believe, my personal feeling is that they could do more to call for a ceasefire, to be harder on that issue. I called for ceasefire in November,
And at that point, based off reports, only 10,000 women and children were killed. Now we're above 40,000 in this horrific attack. Also, we need to release the hostages. And I don't buy into this idea that just because you call for a ceasefire, it's somehow anti-Semitic. The fact is that I abhor anti-Semitism, I abhor Islamophobia, but also abhor the killing of women and children, innocent civilians. I believe that there's a much more targeted way. Now, Hamas has to be taken out without question. Terrorist groups, there's no place for them. They have to be taken out. They can be taken out in a targeted way. When we knew where I was going to say Osama Soleimani from there, we knew where Osama bin Laden was. We didn't just drop a 10-ton bomb on his compound. We sent our best in and we took him out. And that's the posture we need to be to take out Hamas. Not just indiscriminate carpet bombing of innocent civilians, hoping we get Hamas leaders in the process. That is not humane. It's not the right way. And I'm pushing and advocating for the president to be stronger in this issue. But it still doesn't mean that I'm going to vote for Agent Orange. And I'll tell you why, as an example. And this is a matter of life or death. I was appointed to President Obama's cancer panel in 2011. And I served very proudly in that role. And I was working with then Vice President Biden's moonshot to cancer, working with the National Institute of Health. And a lot of the cellular therapies that you see today came out of the research we funded then. As soon as President Trump came in, he wiped that out, wiped it out completely. And so there are people who are going to die from cancer because of the fact that he wiped something out. And I'm proud that there are people alive today that are living because we did something so good from 2011 to 2016 as part of making recommendations to the White House about where to spend that money. So representation matters. Who sits in these seats matters. And that's why Melissa Slotkin should not be the next senator from the state of Michigan.
How'd you get ludicrous to invite you on stage?
I've known Chris Bridges a long time, and I think that there's a mutual respect and admiration, and I appreciate that. I mean, we have to engage voters. This is part of the thing about the Democratic Party. We claim to be a big tent party, but we're losing a populist argument to the other side, and it doesn't make sense. And so we have to meet young voters. Our campaign is attracting young voters in droves, and that's just an example. I mean, Skilla Baby, Baby Money, and Sada Baby are having a concert this Saturday. I think I'll go there too, right? But those are there. It's going to be thousands of young people. I would say 95% of whom have never cast a vote, and certainly have never voted in the primary. Those are the voters we need in the Democratic Party. Why are we ignoring them? Why aren't we showing up? Why aren't we speaking to them? Pulling down debates is literally snubbing your nose in the face of the vast majority of Democratic voters, right? Because what you're really saying is, I'm just going to rely on the votes of that normal primary Democratic voter, and that's going to have me win, rather than saying, I want to bring people to the party. If we do that, we win in November. That's a nice dress. Well, let me say this. I did get a reach out from basically consultants that are adjacent to Biden, Harris, and doing work. And after RFK Jr. got on the ballot, they called and said, "Hill, you're going to like what we pulled some numbers." So they were actually studying the impact of RFK Jr. They weren't really studying anything for me. But what they realized, they said, is that he's going to pull some white voters. They were saying to me 20 to 30,000 white Michigan voters away from Biden. And what it did was it raised the bar that Biden, Harris, Harper was a much stronger ticket for Biden in Michigan because of RFK Jr. and other factors than Biden, Harris, Slotkin. And the reason why is because what's going to be needed to win in November, particularly when those votes are pulled away, is African-American turnout and Arab and Muslim community votes. And you get both of those with Biden, Harris, Harper, and you get none of those with Biden, Harris, Slotkin.
Are you going to show those numbers anytime soon?
It wasn't my research. The guy just called me and said, "Hill, you're going to be happy about this," because he probably saw some article that said I was really down in the polls. So he said, "I'm going to cheer him up."
What was his name?
Yeah, it was a friend from way back who's working over there. I don't want to get him fired. So he deserves a job too. But I think that it doesn't take uh, empirical data to figure that out. If you're going to take $600,000 from APAC, you can't expect the Arab and Muslim community to come out and vote for you. If you have zero connection to the African American community and you've served 3 terms in Congress, just because you hire a lot of black people on your campaign staff, you think we're for sale? You think that that's going to connect you to the community? You think when you don't co-sponsor the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and you don't co-sponsor Cannabis and Expungement Act, things that actually directly impact African Americans, that somehow now we're going to support? It doesn't work that way. So I don't think it takes anybody to actually run data. It's pretty obvious.
Our readers are primarily African American. Talk to me about how you see yourself aligning with our current administration's plans to expand housing and other resources, as well as small business resources for minority and African American businesses.
You know, as a small business owner, I certainly realize that the creation of jobs in neighborhoods and communities runs through small business ownership. And that's a huge thing for me, right? And part of that is getting capital to people in those communities, right? We have to get capital to communities. If you look at many of our lowest income communities that have been choked out, there's just a lack of ownership of businesses in the community, to the extent that when we spend $1, it doesn't recirculate in the community. It leaves because folks from that community don't own the businesses. I often use the corner of Oakland and Owen in Detroit, the north end of Detroit, as an example. To get to my house, I get off on I-75. Whenever I get to that corner, I'm almost in tears, because to the left of me is a boarded up building. Across the street is a vacant lot. To the right, in faded letters, it says Eli's Produce and Irene's Market. So there used to be fresh produce in this neighborhood that's now literally a food desert. And then, of course, across the street, the newest building in town, or in this area, is a liquor store, where the only thing you can buy are Funyuns, Faygo, Burner, or Hennessy through 3 inches of plexiglass. And somehow we're acting like this is okay. That's not a community. It's not owned. That liquor store is not owned by anybody in that community. There's no piece of fresh produce in that liquor store, yet it's there, vibrantly lit up, and certainly the newest building. And so if we're going to talk about funding and capital flow, we have to support young entrepreneurs. And I believe the president is supportive of this. We can get federal dollars to people who actually want to reopen Eli's Produce. So there is fresh produce. We're seeing a great example of that with Detroit People's Food Co-op that just opened May 1st. $22 million. When you invest in communities, you invest in people, it works. There are lines out the door there because the need is so pressing. And to act like there's no need in other ways. So that's a big deal. And that's why having someone sit in the Senate seat that's not a career politician is critical. As a small business owner, I realize the value of that. If you've been in government your whole life, you're seeing it through a different lens. And that's just the reality. We need more diversity in the U.S. Senate. And I'm not just talking racial diversity. If I'm elected to the U.S. Senate, I'd be only one of 2 parents of an elementary age child. If we want to solve issues around elementary education and children, and the fact that gun violence is the #1 cause of death of children, and we're saddling them with mental health issues during active shooting training, we need people to represent. I'd be the only active union member of the U.S. Senate. The only one. Imagine that. We're already down to 6% union membership in the private sector. We need to pass the PRO Act. We need to support our unions. That's why the UAW Region 1A is supportive of it. And that's why there's been no UAW endorsement, because of Laura Dickerson, Regional Director, Region 1A. That's a powerful endorsement. And so they know that I'm a champion of labor. So it's not just about racial diversity and the fact that for the first time in 57 years, Michigan will not have a black Democratic representative in the federal delegation, which is horrible. And I don't think that's what he meant by Make America Great Again, or maybe that is what he meant by it. But the point is that we need representation that's diverse, not just racial. It's from lived experience. And electing another career politician and government person to that Senate seat is not what I believe Michigan is doing.
Hey, so I have a question.
Folks, last question. We'll definitely go up and talk with folks.
Good to see you as well.
You just talked about liquor stores who are owned by someone from outside the community. And as we both know, I also live in the city. That's often like kind of a reference to the Arab American and Chaldean community that owns a lot of liquor stores and gas stations in Detroit. We are also talking about the importance of small business ownership and the need to reach Arab American voters. Are those mixed messages when you're sort of speaking critically of business ownership from outside the community, but you're also reaching out to that community to support? I mean,
not at all.
Can you kind of clarify your position there?
Sure. Not at all. See, what data shows us is that over 90% of people that are hired in small businesses are hired by people from their community. Meaning, if you are from that community and African American, most likely 90% you're going to hire African Americans who are from that community, so creating jobs. If you are Chaldean, Arab, or white, you're going to hire people from your communities. All of that is fine. So I'm a big proponent of businesses and business development. I don't want to crush anyone's development, but I want to make sure that folks have an opportunity to develop as well. So having Chaldean ownership, Arab ownership in these communities is totally fine. But you need to undergird folks who live there as well. I call it the no better deal, right? And it's something I've been talking about. In other words, if you're from that zip code, no one should be able to be offered a better deal in terms of capital than you, right? If a big developer comes in, which we've seen happen in Detroit over and over and over again, where somehow people from the community cannot get any lending activity to reopen these businesses that have been, or buildings that have been boarded up and become landlords, but somehow, some way, a big developer comes in, gets 3 blocks, gets a tax break that they can sell, and gets a 0-interest loan to develop. Yet people in that community can never get that type of loan. That's what I'm talking about. I never want to squelch anyone's entrepreneurship. I think those jobs, we want to create jobs. We want to create jobs for everybody, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. We'll see you out there.
If people didn't get a press release, please see Sarah.
Hopefully you'll come to the debates. If they happen. If they happen.
Yeah, that was